everyone. Welcome back. I am Carla Scipio. I am the CEO and founder of the Women in My Garden. And today I'm back with another episode. We have Queen Dawn Renee Blanchard, a woman of a multifaceted woman that's going to come on and share her story or stories of triumph in the face of challenges, in the face of trauma. As a black woman or woman of African descent, we've been through a lot, but we still has overcome so many. We've been tenacious and resilient in the face of all that our people have encountered, and we still come out ahead. We still come out on top. So, Dawn, I'm going to let you go ahead and speak. At the end, I'm going to ask you, we're going to talk about what kind of flower are you? And this is Conversations in My Garden. And this is a platform where women come on. It's a safe space. It's confidential. Hey, the whole world gonna hear it. It's confidential, but you get an opportunity to encourage and motivate some woman somewhere that's been waiting on your word, waiting on the couple of words or the words that you can share that will make her know that, hey, I'm not in this by myself. And if she did it, I can do it as well. Go ahead, Dawn. Just introduce yourself and then share what
All
you.
righty. Thank you, Carla. So I'm Dawn Renee, as Carla said. I am a mother, grandmother, great grandmother. But I started out as a little kid, and my journey, I would say, really kicked off for me to actually remember it myself and not stories I was told, was at the age of 7. Going through a lot of abuse, went through sexual molestation, went through a lot of that and not knowing why it was happening to me. That took place for about 2 years. A lot of people can resonate with me when I say my grandmother was my savior. It was a boyfriend of my mother's, and that just caused even more trauma. Trying to fight through that. Went through that for a few years, then went through some other areas of physical and mental abuse in my household. Dealt with that, dealt with an alcoholic parent. Still, no matter what, my grandmother was very, very insistent that you got to get an education. You got to make something of yourself. Even though people around you are doing things, you have to do this. But my level of abuse started even before 7. And the reason I say before 7 was a story that was told to me when I was born. My mother said she laid me down in the bed, the hospital bed, and I was crying and crying and crying and crying. And nurse comes in and says, "When are you going to pick the baby up? Are you having problems? Do you want me to pick her up?" And she's like, "No, she's fine." And my mother looked at me and told me, I said, "Well, why did you let me cry?" She said, "At that point in life, I didn't think you were mine." She said, "You were too light to be my child." Now, that was the first story that I ever remember being told about my childhood, but it's also the first time that I felt the abuse started. So went through that, went through childhood abuse as a kid. Like I said, going through molestation, went through school, always doing my best, always getting good grades, trying to do the best. I was teased because I was a lot taller than the other kids. I'm not tall now. Everybody finally caught up. But back then I was as tall as I am now. So I was in the 4th grade and I was 5'8.5". So I was tall. I was taller than the teacher. So I got called names then. Then after that, went through other forms of abuse from my mother, and all I knew was to get out. So got married at a young age. My senior year in high school, I did not go to the prom like everybody else does. My senior year of high school, I went to the prom. I was married, had 2 kids, and worked for the IRS. So it was totally different. Had my own apartment and everything. But what I did was I escaped one form of abuse and then came to find out was right in another one. My first husband was really, really, really amazing. Treated me like I was a queen, got married, and bam, the abuse started.
Mm,
So, in my eyes, the only way I could describe it was He went from being abusive to being obsessive.
Mm,
So that's where it went. So went through that, went through divorced. I've raised 4 children by myself. I truly believe that I really have never had a job my whole life. I've hustled my whole life. I was going to make a way out of no way because my grandmother told me something as a child. You had them, you raise them. This is your responsibility that God has given you, and this is what you need to do. And I looked at her and said, okay. I mean, there was no conversation otherwise besides the fact that I had to do what she told me. So, went through budget cuts, working for the IRS, got laid off, in that same time of being laid off, had a full ride college scholarship. My husband at the time was like, "Oh, no, 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 we do not do that." And that's when the abuse really got bad because the life threats started. If you leave and go to school, I'm going to kill you. This is this. So I gave that up,
mm,
and I didn't follow through with the scholarship. Years go by. Finally, the abuse kept getting worse and worse. One day, the abuse turned from me to my children. What I thought was abuse, it was really just discipline. But in my mind, it triggered me. The kids, they deserved a spanking that day because they had opened every Christmas gift up under the tree, and it was a week before Christmas. So I understood them getting in trouble. But in my mind, I counted past the number 4 of licks. When we got to number 5, I said, that's enough. And he looked at me, and I told him, I said, I can take all the beatings in the world, but what you will never do is abuse my children. That is
mm,
my job, to protect them. The next day I left,
mm,
made it through that night, got up the next morning, went to work, called my dad, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. I will not, because I lived the abuse. I lived it. So I refused to do that. I was very, my grandmother had said words like generational trauma and things that had been passed down. And I didn't quite, still didn't know what that was at that time. Kept going, working, 2 or 3 jobs, always doing everything that I could to make sure that my children were taken care of. And that's what I've done. I've been a natural hairstylist for 30 plus years, and I still do it. There's some clients won't let me retire, and I've retired twice from the hair business. I run my own jewelry business. I make and create jewelry. That's my piece. Um, I was always determined that one day I would get back to school. So I've done a lot of certificates, have a couple of associate's degrees, um, went to school for Christian counseling. And then I was like, you know what? My kids are getting a little older. So I decided it was time to go back to school. I went back to school. I've been in school this is the longest period of time that I've been in school. And I've been in school for the last 7 years straight. I got my bachelor's in human resources with a concentration in addictions counseling, and then I just kept going. I am in matter of fact, as we're speaking, this is my last week of my clinical hours for my master's degree, and I'm
okay.
doing my and I'm doing my research for my PhD program. So deciding which direction I'm gonna go with that. Um, I've been a school teacher. I was a school teacher at an elementary school. I started in 2015. And I just realized that being a school teacher wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. I was good at it from what I was told, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. So after about 2 years, came out of the classroom. Came out of the classroom because I saw a need that kids did not have a voice. And it resonated with me because for so many years of all the different stories that I could share of abuse that I went through, I wanted them to have that voice that I didn't have.
Mm,
So I became a voice for kids. I believe in advocating for kids. I've literally stood in my principal's office many a times and said, I really don't care about what you say, what the dean says, the assistant principal says. I got to make sure these kids are safe. That's my priority. And he got to the point where he said, I understand why you say that now. He said, I was a little upset at first because At the end of the day, so many things happen in this world. We never stop to think how does it affect the children? There are kids being abused every day.
Mm-hmm.
And there were laws put in place where kids could report abuse. Those aren't the kids using those laws. Those laws are usually used by kids that aren't being abused. They just don't like the fact that they got in trouble at home. The
Right.
kids that are really being abused are still afraid. Um, so between that, I've always just wanted to advocate for kids and women to have a voice. So I switched from education, started on my road to mental health, and that's what I've been doing ever since. My goal is to let women know that there's a process with this. When we go through abuse, when we go through anything, whether it be a breakup, divorce, losing a job, there is a process to be able to get through it. And a lot of people ask me because some of the stories of abuse that I went through are really, really dark, really, really dark. And I'm talking for some people, they ask me, "How did you get through that? How do you even? How do you say you love your mother?" I love my mother because I had to do the work to find out that my mother had her own demons.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I just happened to be what who she took it out on, and not my siblings as much as me. And once I realized that, I had to tell her, and I was blessed enough to tell her before she died that I forgave her for what she did. I really, really did. I had to forgive her. So when I talk about the stories, it's not well, you talk about it and you're not crying or you don't seem like it was something as bad as you say it was. Well, because I did the process and the work of forgiveness, it doesn't hurt me as much. And I know using my story could help somebody else and let them know they can get to a place where their heart is not hurting all the time. That's what we talk about, the generational trauma of things. My mother went through her demons and her levels of abuse, and it just keeps getting passed on. My mother was a teenage mother. She got married when she was 15, had her first child after she got married, and the cycle just continues. That was one of the things I also decided that I wanted to do, and that was to break that cycle.
Mm.
I told all four of my kids, if anybody has a child before the age of 18, we're going to have problems. And one of them just barely missed it by a few months, but my oldest son's first child was born a few months before his 18th birthday. But the rest of them, my two youngest boys, they were in their 20s. My daughter, she was married and had at after 18 and had all her children with her first husband. She was married for 18 years. So I tried to do everything plausible to break that cycle. And that's what we talk. We hear people talk about breaking the cycles, but that's when it stops because all they're doing is talking about it. You have to do the work. I
Yes.
had to do the work. I've written letters to my mother. I've had conversations with my mother, even if she was there or not, releasing a lot of the damage that was done to me. And also realizing one of the most key factors, it was not my fault.
Yeah.
When we are abused, when we are mistreated, the first thing we do is take responsibility or either ask ourselves, what did I do wrong? Well, it has nothing to do with you sometimes.
Mm.
Most of the time, it's because you just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the abuse is coming out on you.
Right.
Just like women that go through being raped. I went from being molested as a child at the age of 21, being raped. And for a long time, I thought it was my fault. And it's just like with men and women when our bodies are betraying us, because just because you're raped and your body responds, that doesn't mean it was something that you liked or that you did something wrong. Your body's going to respond naturally, but it's not your fault. How do you tell people that I've been raped and it's not my fault? Well, for one, you have to put that responsibility back on the person that did that. See, we got to put blame where blame needs to be instead of taking advantage of ourselves, because that's us taking advantage of ourselves and taking all that blame onto ourselves. And that's not where it's at. We have to stop being silent. I realized a lot of the abuse and part of a lot of the things that I had to go through, I had to release certain things. I tell people all the time, we can sit and talk about R. Kelly. We can sit and talk about this one, that one, the famous people that have done things wrong. But you're not talking about your uncles that are in your family
Sure.
that's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
See, it's easy to project on somebody that you don't know, but
Yeah.
for us to do the work, we have to call a spade a spade. If you know somebody in your family is doing this, we got these carpets are too bumpy because we sweep it under the rug. We have too many skeletons in the closet because that's where we try to jam everything. No, if someone is hurting you or mistreating you, you have to be an advocate for yourself to be able to tell people what is going on and why this is happening. If you can't do that, the cycle continues. I went through that cycle of always, and most women want to be loved, and I went through that cycle, and I had to realize after being married, divorced more than one time, I had to sit down with each one of my marriages and figure out why did I get married? What did I contribute to it? Even when I felt like I was doing everything right,
Mhm.
guess what? I contributed because I saw the red flags and I looked the other way.
Mm.
See that person couldn't do it all by themselves. Even when you think you're doing everything right, you still have to take accountability for what you contributed.
Right.
Even if it was like with me, that last marriage, I was like, oh, I've done, I crossed every T, dotted every I. But you know what? I saw the red flags. I looked the other way. So I had to get to a place in my life where I love myself enough that do I want to be married? Of course. Am I married? No. What that means to me is until it's the right person, I'm not just going to accept anything. I'm going to love myself enough that it's okay for me to be where I'm at.
Right.
And a lot of people are not comfortable with who they are because they haven't done the work. They haven't done the process of understanding why this happened or holding people accountable for the way that they treated them instead of running from it. Well, that's another form of generational trauma that we just keep passing down and keep passing down. We look at our young people and we're like, abuse in boyfriends and girlfriends at 13 and 14 years old, that's happening real common now.
Yeah.
We had a situation like that at one of the schools where I'm a therapist. A 14-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy got into an argument and he stabbed and killed her.
Wow.
But in my household, my mother said you're not supposed to be having boyfriends at 13 and 14. But these are things that are changing and we're not being accountable and understanding and not talking at our children, talk to them, listen to them. Sometimes it's sad to say, but sometimes parents need to be quiet and listen to their children.
Mm.
Give them a platform to be able to say why I don't want to go over this person's house, which is another thing. I've never in my life understood. My father told me this when my daughter was like 2 years old. He said she is old enough that when she comes over, she sits on my knee. She does not sit in my lap. She is a little girl. Girls are not supposed to be all up in a man's face, all up in a man's lap. He said, I don't care who it is, even our own daddy. I just don't. He said, you got to be careful.
Yes.
And I think about that, but I think about how many women that I see make their kids, oh, give Uncle such and such a hug. No, if they speak, they're being respectful. Do not force children to hug strangers. If they don't feel comfortable, don't do it. And that's not happening with us. So mental health is something that is more than just mental health. It's being able to help women heal, help women get past and understand the abuse that happened to you. It happened to you. It's not who you are.
Right.
And that's where we make a mistake. We take it on as that it's part of my identity. No, that's something that happened to me. That's not who I am as a person. I'm not going to let it to define me. I'm going to get control. I'm going to get help so that I can be a better person because of my circumstance doesn't determine who I am going to be for the rest of my life. But a lot of people don't realize that. And that's what I want to do. I want to be able to share with women different stories like the ones that you do, Carla, talking about the different things that we go through and how we are triumphant, how we overcome. I have a lot of health issues, and everybody's steadily saying, "Well, you should retire and you should this." Well, my mind is telling me it's not time. There's work to be done. Now, there's times my body says, if you don't sit down, and I'll slow down, I'll take a break, but as long as God's given me breath and giving me a voice to be able to still speak to women and help when I can, I'm going to continue to do that.
Right.
Because all of us have a right to be in a safe place. All of us have a right to love ourselves unconditionally. I tell myself, I love myself always. I might not like myself, but I love myself always. And when I'm loving myself, sometimes I may have to love myself through the storm, whatever that storm may be. It is a big difference.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of stories that of abuse, mistreatment, raising children, dealing with a son who made his own choices and ended up in the prison system. And it's the craziest thing because my son tells people, my mother raised me the right way. She really did. She's never given up. I made my choices. He said, at one time, I tried to blame her and said it was her fault. And he did. He said, but I know it was a choice I made being with the wrong people, and
Mm.
I got myself into trouble. So I've dealt with that system, and it's a hard system to deal with. But like I told him, you know what? The only way I can do your time with you is on this side, and I'm not coming to see you. I have to make sure your kids are okay. So
Yeah.
all the time and money most parents put into their children, I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do that for your children so that they know who you are and know who I am. So it's a lot, but if we don't start being advocates for ourselves, we look at the system the way it is now. We're in a cycle of disarray all over the place. And if we don't start being advocates and reaching out and giving back and going back to some of the old ways, when I was coming up, our community centers were open. Our kids had a place to go. Now our kids have nowhere. They don't have adults that they could go to and talk to break some of these cycles. It's just continuing to go.
I think there are so many. You touched on so many stories, so many things, um, so many life lessons that you have learned. That as an elder, now you must share. Not even if you don't want to share. There's an urgent sense of urgency, a sense of, hey, we got to do this because I see where we can end up, and this is not something we want. But you talked about so many different things. We talked about generational trauma. You talked about having to heal yourself um, internally and begin by holding yourself accountable for what has transpired. But when I think about it, and I often tell people that as a community of people who are not that far removed from being enslaved, we still have the slave mentality.
Hmm.
We still, we are,
I don't think we're removed from slavery. I
well,
don't.
I'm gonna say I agree with you. But I'm just saying, cause people feel that they can move around relatively.
Hmm.
So I'm just talking about the physical change
Yeah,
because
the physical change.
we are still enslaved
Yeah.
in so many different factors. But people doesn't don't even realize that. But what I was talking about is our mentality, our mindset, our
Hmm.
perspective dictates how we behave and what we see. So now, as the elders in the community and having lived this long, it's our responsibility as a community to come back and teach and encourage and help the others heal. So when you talked about your journey and why you feel like you have to, your reasons for your why, your reasons for switching from education to mental health, um, and being out there amongst the young people, and you start to use your family unit as an example. And I think that's one of the things I was listening to you talk, and I heard something earlier because we tend to focus on generational curses, but then I think too on the same hand we need to kind of push up generational blessings.
Hmm.
Um, these are some of the things that we have done throughout the centuries, that even though we have been abused and subjected to all types of horrors, that we still, not only have we survived, we thrived. So
Hmm.
we're gonna look at the positive stuff, but then let's deal with the negative things. So,
Hmm.
it would take us coming together, like you sharing your story, and even having all of these conversations, and not just stopping in the conversation, but actually putting their boots on and going out in the community. Like we're planning on having some community events in different cities, where we can actually challenge and we can teach and we can encourage, because I believe that it takes all of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Prayer. We got to be out there. We're gonna deal with the emotions. We're gonna deal with the mentals. We need to talk about the truth, because there's so many lies and deception floating around and up in black and white letters, and that's all they are: lies and deception. And when you don't know the truth, or you don't know your past, of course we're gonna repeat it.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely.
So,
Hmm.
so
Definitely.
what are some takeaways that you want to tell any woman that's sitting and stopped on YouTube or any place, and they see a short, they see a reel, they see the video? What are some of the takeaways you want to leave for the younger sisters? Um, what do you want to tell them?
Take time to listen.
Hmm.
Reach out to the elders of their families and take time to listen. But one of the first things that we all should do, women, um, being who I am as a woman, every morning when I get up, whether I've slept or not, because there's nights I don't, I look in the mirror and I have to tell myself that I love myself. We need to start falling in love with who we are as women before we can actually do everything that we do in this world. It helps strengthen who we are. And there's times I have that conversation with myself. And that conversation goes a lot like, you know what? I don't like you right now
Hmm.
because things ain't looking right. The weight is not doing what you wanted to do. You're not doing completing the things. You know you got to get sleep. I have a conversation, but even at the end of that conversation, I let myself know that I love you. Being able to reach out if you need help. It's okay to pick up the phone. My strongest statement I ever think I've ever made is the strongest person in this world is the person that knows when to ask for help, not the person who thinks they know it all. It's okay to go get help. It's okay to ask for advice. Somewhere we lost that because most people feel like it's disrespectful or they don't want nobody to know that they don't know something. I'm going to pick up the phone and call Carla if I got a question because I know your expertise.
Hmm.
Being able to talk to people and get help if you need it. We have been brainwashed to think that mental health is a bad thing. When people say mental health, the first thing they think is, oh, that's crazy people. They never even get past
No.
that mental health can be good mental health. See,
Hmm.
we don't even focus on, nobody ever focuses on good mental health. And that's why most people, when you say mental health or therapy or counseling, they're like, oh, no, we don't do that. Our culture was taught we don't do that. No, I want my mental health to be good. I want my grandchildren's mental health to be good. So we have open conversations. Sometimes, like I tell them, you know what? Just pick up the phone, or you want to come over? Let's paint. Let's do something. Let's sit and just have a conversation.
And see, that's another deception, another lie as it
Hmm.
relates to mental health and black people that we go along with that. No, like you said, they're good mental health. When
Hmm.
you anxiety kicks in, anxiety can be a good thing. Too much anxiety is not good, but anxiety is a good thing. You get the heart racing, speed up some, and you do this fear of flight or fear. But I think there's so many deceptions and so many lies about ourselves
Hmm.
that it's time for us to teach the truth.
Yes.
And it begins with every one person. It begins with you.
Yes.
Work on the individual,
Hmm.
work on the family unit. Then you're gonna work on the community, and then we can say, okay, we're going nationwide. But it starts
Exactly.
with us, within
Hmm.
healing ourselves. Oh
Yep.
yes, and healing yourself starts with accountability.
Yes. That's just like emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
which is another thing that I share a lot with younger women that I see, or different women that I see, and some young men. We have a tendency. Emotional intelligence has always been around. They just gave it a nice fancy title. Emotional intelligence. You hear people talk about EQ. But the thing that's so important about that is, if we work on our emotional intelligence as individuals, how much greater we would be. Me working on my emotional intelligence is being able to be at a job site that racism may exist, but I know how to handle my emotions. I'm not flying off the handle. Me being that fifth grade kid in a classroom, because I believe the kids need to be taught emotional intelligence, that is being bullied, and they know everything they need to do immediately of how to handle it. Most kids are being bullied, and parents don't get to find out about it until it's gone on for a long time, and then it's boiled over. We need to be able to teach them skills to be able to, on that first time, come home and tell somebody, if not your teacher and at home. And they said, well, when did this start? Oh, today was the first time it ever happened. Well, let's put it into it now. Instead of kids being bullied and bullied and bullied, and next thing you know, they're talking about shooting up the whole school because they're at their wits' end. We need to be able to teach them, as well as teach the bullies need to understand, because a bully is a bully because somebody bullied them, or somebody has mistreated them, or somebody has done something to them, and that's the only way that they can communicate. See, we got to be able to teach positive communication and the right way to communicate, not just lashing out all the time.
Right.
But that's part of having good mental health.
I think too. And We're gonna end here. I think too the fact that often we take it for granted that people have elders, and when you look at this generation, you have young people who weren't raised or didn't have any elders, um, who are actually don't know a lot about life except what they saw on television, and they're trying to do life and
Hmm.
call it being parents when they don't know diddly squat, and I can say that because as a nurse I've seen where I had a patient that was 14 and just had a baby that came in for follow-up care and also to get on birth control, and I was glad for that. But then um was your mom, and come to find out the mom was 28 and the grandmother was not 40 years old yet. So I saw the generational cycle, and I think that for me that was one of my moments where I gotta do something.
Got to do something.
I just can't sit here. I gotta do something. I
And
gotta
that's what
teach
we're
that
going to do.
young child how to take care of herself and how to take care of her baby.
Exactly. Hmm.
So on that note, this is just the first of one of our many conversations that we're going to be having, and we're going to be hopefully we'll be able to utilize this platform as a way to teach other women, to teach younger women, and even teach adult women, even women our ages and older that don't know, that are still broken, that are still hurting. Um, that's still emotionally bent and mentally off, and so they can learn how they can rest, they can live, and they can thrive. With go on to your next. Enjoying life. It's already
Exactly.
hard. So,
Hmm.
Domine, I thank you for coming out, my sister. I thank you, Queen. I appreciate you being around. It's always good to have a conversation with you.
Always.
Thank you for sharing your story of triumph. My question to you is before you leave, what type of flower are you? Because we're talking about the woman in my garden, and my garden is filled with different types of flowers. Flowers are beautiful. Even the
Yes, I'm not necessarily a flower.
what is
I'm
it?
more of a plant.
Okay, all right.
And mine is there's only two plants that I have in my house, and those are cactus and aloe
Oh,
vera.
you got
Because
to.
aloe vera plants actually are healing,
Uh-huh.
and the cactus is prickly and it's been through a lot, but it still survives.
That's right.
And those two are the only ones that I've ever been able to keep alive. I have a cactus and aloe vera that I've had for 7 years and it's still growing. So I know this is definitely for me.
Yes, ma'am. So you're a cactus and or aloe vera.
Yep, that's it.
Oh, you can be okay. We're gonna do both, huh? So I appreciate that. That's a different one. You're still in the garden.
Oh yeah,
So,
definitely in the
right.
garden.
You're still in the garden,
Hmm.
And this the cactus with its resilience and tenacity. Even if it doesn't require a lot of water, it doesn't
Nope.
require a lot of attention. It just wants a space to thrive. It just
Yep,
needs space to thrive.
and that's
All
it.
right, that's it. So I'm gonna go ahead and end. Dawn, thank you so much. I hope to see you soon.
All right, thank you.